When we think of a supercar, we tend to think of our McLarens, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, but what if I told you by Google's definition that this BMW M6 is in fact a supercar? So on this episode of Cars with Jay, we're going to find out what it's like to live with its 750 brake horsepower. The F-Series BMW M6 was released in 2012. Over the years, it was offered in three variants: the F12 convertible, the F13 coupe, and the one we have today, the F06 Grand Coupe. The F-Series M6 features the S63 V8 twin-turbo engine, ditching the S85 V10 from the previous generation. More favourably, it has a new 7-speed DCT gearbox, which is much better than the previous SMG gearbox. The non-competition M6 produces 567 horsepower and 618 Nm of torque, and the competition pack increases the power output to 591 horsepower and 700 Nm of torque. All this combined, it will do 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds and go on to a top speed of 155 miles an hour or 190 miles an hour with the competition pack. That's impressive for a car that weighs almost 2 tons.
So let's take a look around Jay's M6. Yes, the owner of this car is also called Jay, so not to get confused, it is spelt differently. So this being an LCI model, it comes with the LCI lights, and this has also got the adaptive lights, which is an extra option. Jay's also added a carbon factory lower carbon kit, so that comes with the front and rear diffuser and also the side skirts. As you can see, the competition wheels that you get on the competition. To complement all the carbon bits, Jay's also gone for a Vogue Automotive rear spoiler. He did have the small one on, but before the carbon factory kit, so it looks so much better, it complements it a lot. The rear diffuser, very, very aggressive, and he's also got carbon tips on the exhaust pipes, which I think just ties in really nicely, especially with the San Marino blue. It doesn't look as chavvy on this car, it looks quite smart. As with all M cars, get a lovely carbon roof. So this BMW is also equipped with comfort access, which basically means keyless entry, but it also means soft closed doors, which if you take a look at this, if we close that, what a nice touch. Just more to go wrong, to be honest. This also has something that I really like. You can see here it's got a camera, because this car has a 360 camera system. The great thing about the 360 camera is you can park like a BMW driver quite easily. So we found a disabled spot here. Nice, we've got 2 spaces, so we'll take both of those, as we should, because we are BMW drivers. And there we go, that's it. We've parked just like a BMW driver.
A cool feature about the camera system is its junction assist, which is great for looking out for the unsuspecting Peugeot driver.
So moving into the interior of the BMW M6, it has beautiful extended merino leather optioned in this car. It's got the carbon fibre everywhere. It has the MBT Evo sat-nav, which I'm sure people will correct me on if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right this time. The comfort seats fitted to this car are electronically adjustable. You can adjust everything from the bolsters to your shoulders to the headrest. They're not the most comfortable seats in the BMW range that I've ever sat in. The original sport seats that came in this car, I don't find too comfortable either. They're quite hard.
A cool feature of this M6 is its steering wheel. It's got the BMW M Performance wheel. It has some really cool features, like a little display at the top which shows you your G readings, temperatures, your lap times. It's got LED rev counters either side, so you can see when to change gear in a bit more of a flashy way. It also has this lovely Alcantara stitching going all the way around, which improves driver feedback in my opinion. The only downside of using this wheel is you lose the heated steering wheel functionality. Another feature about the car is its heads-up display. It just looks really cool, and it's got some weird quirky options, like you can change the angle of its position.
Other features that you'd expect from a 6 Series, it's got the Harman Kardon sound system. Now this car actually had the Bang & Olufsen option available, but it's a very rare option. As always with BMWs, and especially with the 6 Series, everything is positioned towards the driver. One thing I like about this over the M5 is that the interior feels more complete. I don't like the aircon controls and the radio controls. It looks very basic in this. I think if they use the 7 Series aluminium buttons, that would just look so much nicer, but obviously this car's a bit older. You've got your camera button here, which is like a blind spot kind of assist. As you approach the junction, the 2 cameras left and right will activate, and you can see that on the display. So it makes pulling out a little bit easier. So that just sounded really dirty.
Anyway, moving on from that, let's find out what it's like to drive.
So Google defines a supercar as luxury, fast, prestigious and flashy. Now technically, by definition, this M6 is a supercar, right? You can agree or disagree with me in the comment section below. But the reason I raised that point is because for me, I like to look at cars that offer best value for money, and I know some supercars like the R8, the 911, even the McLarens you can use every day, but they just don't have that full-on practicality, and sitting so low is not always the best thing all the time. You start looking at other cars that can offer that kind of option, and the M6 is one of those cars because it's the most luxurious car out of the range apart from the 7 Series. It is a big, comfortable cruiser. It has so many gadgets. It looks like it ticks all the boxes and it would be an amazing driving machine, right? And this particular one has 750 brake. So it's as powerful as a supercar. It's more comfortable, arguably. It's got adaptive suspension like a supercar. And at the bottom of the price point, you can get these cars for £25,000 for a 14 plate. It's a no-brainer, right? Being an M car, you have your a la carte driving modes, and the buttons are located near the gear stick down here. Start with steering. Comfort, in my opinion, is the best. It's really lightweight, it's kind of effortless, but it is heavy enough that you kind of feel like you're in control of the car. Going up to sport, the weight does increase considerably, and it's a good weight, but going into Sport Plus, it's just way too heavy. It feels like you're really putting a lot of work into this car to get it to steer, and it doesn't feel artificial necessarily, it just feels overly heavy. So comfort and sport are the best two modes I find. For daily driving, comfort would be the one for me. In terms of suspension, you can think of this car almost like traditional M Sport suspension. You do feel the bumps on the road. It is stiff. It's not like being in an S-Class Mercedes. You haven't got air suspension wafting you along. I don't really notice too much of a difference between Sport and Sport Plus, but you do notice that the car has become considerably stiffer on the roads. You can feel the bumps a lot more. I would kind of want a bit more body roll from this car because I want it to be more luxurious than be more of a supercar, because I'm not going to take this on track. I'm just going to be driving it day to day. That brings on to our final a la carte driving option, which is the engine modes. The biggest thing with the engine modes is comfort reducing throttle response so much. Like right now, if I want to overtake, I really have to commit to the throttle pedal. And being in a 750 brake horsepower car, I don't know how much I trust that. If you go to Sport and Sport Plus, the throttle is so responsive that you have a lot more linear control, and it feels a lot more engaging as you can apply the power as you desire. For day-to-day driving, I'd love to keep the throttle and engine modes into Sport, because just having the extra responsiveness and control is much better for me as a driver. So this car is spec'd with comfort seats, apart from the tombstone seats that usually come in the M6. Has lots of adjustment and you can get it to fit, but it just kind of feels very temporary. Like I wouldn't want to go on a long road trip in these seats. But other than that, you know, they do the job and they are more luxurious than your 3 Series or your 4 Series and that kind of range of car, but just nothing to go home and brag about. In terms of rear leg space on this car, I think anyone over 6 foot is going to struggle. I mean, I'm 5'8", 5'9", and even with my seating position, the room in the back isn't that much at all. So it's not really designed to have people in the back, but it's great for kids because I'd rather have this over the coupe. The doors are much better on these cars as well. So traditionally in M cars, brakes haven't been their strongest point. Now, in my M2 video, people were disagreeing on that, saying that the brakes were completely fine. It's not so much the brake discs are the issue. It comes down to not having the right pads and not having high temperature brake fluid, which makes all the difference, because it may be fine day to day and you might think, oh, this is all right. But when you really are on it, say you're on a twisty road, you go on a road trip or something like that, it gets to the point where that pedal is going to push to the floor and your brakes aren't going to be doing anything. And considering these brakes are almost £2,000 to replace, it's not something that you want to happen in this kind of car, and that is a real downside. So if you're buying one of these, high temperature brake fluid, get some decent pads and you're fine. In terms of general driving, with the size of the car, the brakes do stop it okay, but you kind of do feel a bit nervous at certain speeds, and because this car at 750 horsepower can get up to 150 plus in no time, you really find the limits of the brakes pretty quickly. So if you're buying one of these cars, factor into your budget some brakes, some decent brakes.
Speaking of budget, let's take a look at the M6's running costs and some of the common problems that you need to look out for when buying one used. So let's start with the tyres, where a full set of Michelin Pilot Supersports will cost you around £1,000. Brake discs aren't cheap either, costing at least £1,600 for the front and £800 for the rear. Petrol is going to be an important factor to consider. Full 80-litre tank will give about 300 miles of range, and in today's climate will cost around £130 to fill up. This equates to approximately 16.9 miles per gallon. So here are some of the main problems that you need to look out for. First thing is a faulty oil pump. This is caused by the shaft and the rotor not being in spec, causing them them to separate. Although there are no telltale signs, the only thing that you can do is keep an eye on the oil pressure. As most people will be running high power in these cars, it's important to note that the drive shafts can fail due to poor welds during manufacturing. And finally, early cars from 2012 or 2013 are more prone to suffer from an airbag warning light due to malfunctioning airbag sensors.
So what's my verdict then? Well, I think this car is better suited in its 640D or 650i counterpart. You get all the tech and refinement, and arguably a more sensible styling, provided you get the LCI. You're not going to get the big power gains, but you're not really losing out day to day. So with the 640D and the 650i, you're able to exploit the car a lot more. Now the 650i has the same engine as this car, but it's tuned way down, so you're actually able to make use of some of that power day to day. With the M6, it feels like you're teetering on the throttle, because any little sudden movement, this back end's going to break loose, and it's not very confidence inspiring, especially on a day like today with, I think it's -1 degrees at the moment, which is why we're not driving too fast. It's just effortless amounts of power in this car. It's just 750 brake horsepower shouldn't be legal on the public roads. It's just insane. Now, being someone who's driven a plethora of different cars, for example a 720S, which has near enough the same power, probably more because they always understate their figures, it does feel slower than a 720S, but that's simply due to its refinement and exterior size. I mean, put them side by side, you'll probably find that they're the same. But it's really easy, and I'm pretty much just letting the car do the work for me. And it just feels so effortless and so fast, but I'm not getting much from it in terms of, you know, like say if I was in a Lotus, for example, with a manual gearbox, and I can feel every bump in the road, and I've got no power steering, and I've got a little 1.8 engine that I'm absolutely ragging the shit out of. This doesn't feel like that, but if I was doing a long road trip, apart from the seats, of course, I wouldn't mind it, to be honest. It's just so nice. So it is an enjoyable car when you want it to be, but if you are not an experienced driver, this is not really the car for you. I mean, the amount of times the back end's just twitched on this thing, the amount of times that it's almost caught you out. If you're a young driver and, you know, say you're in your early 20s, you've seen this car for 25 grand, you can get a bank loan now, you can jump into something like this, you're gonna put so much power into it. Ask yourself a question, right? What car have you got now? What power is it running? And I know what most people are going to say, oh, I've got an S3, that's stage 3, that's probably running 350 brake. Okay, yeah, fair enough. But if you've got your Quattro system and stuff like that, it's not going to aid you. This is different. This is pure rear-wheel drive. You know, if you put it into its M modes, you're going to lose it. You're going to crash it. Best thing to do is get a slower rear-wheel drive car, appreciate how a rear-wheel drive car works. When you jump to a turbo car, I mean, if it's naturally aspirated, your first car like a 330i, which would be an ideal candidate. When you jump to a turbo car like a 335i, for example, it's different because now when the turbo kicks in, it can really unsettle the balance of the car. So you just want to keep an eye out for that. As I said before, this car can drive itself. So if you're buying this thing and you want to kind of learn about how it drives and want to get into driving it fast, you can do it. You can treat it like a normal car for the normal days, and you can really put your foot down for the other days. But honestly, it's a very expensive car. It's a very expensive car to run. It's a very expensive car to maintain. It has a drinking problem. It drinks a lot of fuel, and at 750 brake, you're not exactly gonna, it's not gonna be economical in the slightest. I think today we're averaging about 24 miles per gallon, and that's only because for the talking bits I've been driving semi-normal, but the power is so great when you've actually got it. And even at half throttle and only using half of the rev range, it's just, it doesn't fail to put a smile on your face.
So the M6 gets my approval, but it's completely unnecessary day to day. Thank you for watching this episode of Cars with Jay. If you liked the video, hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos from my channel, please subscribe.